The four in Harrow who were found dead inside their home on June 20th. The OPP are now describing the deaths as a case of intimate partner violence. As Dawson Chen reports, the death of Carly Walsh and her two children are renewing calls for support and a warning. The story contains details of gun violence and suicide.
Facebook photos of the Walsh family show loving embraces and smiling faces. The happy social media images are a stark contrast to what happened at their home on June 20th. Police have confirmed that all four members of the family died by firearm. Carly Walsh and her children, Madison and Hunter, were fatally shot, and then Stephen Walsh, the husband and father of the family, turned the weapon on himself.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to extend our deepest condolences to all family members and friends that are devastated by this tragedy. The initial investigation has determined that this is a case of intimate partner violence. And intimate partner violence is a serious, relevant problem in Ontario.
I think right now it's all so fresh and it's still shocking. So there's a lot of sorrow, a lot of, questions like why, how. It's a healing process. It's going to take a long time, I think, for us to even digest what happened, because this was just a family in our town, like a regular family, just like any other family.
The revelations about the incident have renewed calls for higher levels of government to take action on intimate partner violence. Earlier this year, Windsor West's member of provincial parliament pushed for legislation that would declare intimate partner violence an epidemic across the province.
This is not an outlier. This is unfortunately very common, and we need the government to acknowledge the epidemic that we are in when it comes to intimate partner violence, to make the declaration and let people know that there is help out there. And then what the government needs to do is to take the information that they already have and start properly funding women's shelters.
It's a situation where hindsight's always 20/20, and no one should carry that guilt and shame that there was things that were missed. But at the end of the day, nothing does occur in a vacuum. What we see as a community is this insane, mind-boggling act of violence and what is going to become intergenerational trauma for families and friends that are impacted by this. So start the conversation and keep that conversation going.
Police have said further information will be released as the investigation continues. Meanwhile, the community continues to struggle with thoughts on how the recent tragedy could have been avoided.
Local municipalities a year ago asked the province to help us, to do something, to hear us. So, hopefully with this horrific incident, we can finally be heard, because this isn't the end of it. This is not going to be the end of it until we can recognize it and get the proper resources in place.
Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
If you or someone you know is struggling, here are some places where you can get help. Call 988 for the Suicide Crisis Helpline. Kids Help Phone can be reached at 1-800-668-6868. There's also a live chat counseling on their website. The Hiatus House Crisis Line is 519-252-7781. And Windsor's Crisis and Mental Wellness Center can be reached at 519-973-4435. Later in the show, I'll speak with a women's rights advocate about some of the signs people can watch for and the impacts of intimate partner violence in rural communities. Windsor Police are launching a new online tool for reporting hate crimes. The tool will allow people to report and even submit evidence from the comfort of their home in a bid to reduce barriers and help police gather more information. Last year, the service says it received 32 reports of hate-motivated incidents, 17 involving race or ethnicity, 9 involving religion, 6 targeting sexual orientation, and 1 involving gender. Residents can go to Windsor's Police's website to submit a form. Well, about 100 pro-Palestinian demonstrators marched through the University of Windsor campus this afternoon. It's an effort to put pressure on the administration to sign a deal that would see an end to their encampment on campus. Today marks 60 days since protesters set up tents at U Windsor to express their concerns over the ongoing war in Gaza. The demonstrators have submitted a list of demands to the university. The university has yet to finalize a deal. The province has put out a searchable online map showing where Ontario drinkers can buy booze during the LCBO strike. Premier Doug Ford is promoting the map in a video on his social media, drawing angry reaction from the striking workers. Our senior reporter at Queen's Park, Mike Crawley, reports.
It's summertime in Ontario.
Premier Doug Ford grilling up some burgers. So what's he doing with cans of craft beer sitting beside a hot barbecue?
Even though LCBO workers are on strike, there's still plenty of options for you to buy beer, wine, cider, coolers, and even spirits.
Ford's video is promoting a way to find those options. A new online searchable map produced by the government and rolled out on day 4 of the provincial liquor store strike.
Enjoy and remember to drink responsibly.
Here on the picket line, Ford's video isn't winning any fans.
Even though LCBO workers are on strike, there's still plenty of options.
Doug Ford is all about himself. This is not about the public. This is about him.
They're trying to get the public to think we don't need LCBO, we have all the other options.
I think what would have been more useful as an interactive map for Ontarians would be one that directs them to a family doctor.
Among the hundreds of locations listed on the map,
and if you come here, there's our retail fridge.
The Old Flame Brewing Company here in Toronto's Distillery District.
You can actually sample the beers before you take them home.
Old Flame sells not only its own beer to carry out, but also a selection of wine and cider. Staff have already noticed a jump in foot traffic since the strike began.
Well, with the summer weather and, when people realize that there is a place down the road for our local area to grab beer, cider, and wine as an option to go, I think we'll definitely see an increase in sales.
Let's make it an Ontario-made summer.
Beyond this video, Ford has not spoken publicly about the strike.
Premier.
And except for this news conference 3 hours drive north of Thunder Bay, he hasn't taken questions from reporters in nearly 6 weeks. In that time, there's been a major cabinet shuffle, the sudden closure of the Ontario Science Centre, and now 9,000 LCBO workers off the job. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario Health Minister Sylvia Jones was in Windsor today with new details about the cardiac catheterization lab coming to Windsor Regional Hospital.
The tender has been approved, and yes, it's actually going to happen. There is no doubt that as we made our initial announcement, it was to ensure that the process to get bids and applications in, review them, assess them, but I can assure you that that work has been done, and Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the work, well, I'm going to turn it over to Karen to talk about the actual timeline, but you will see this project move forward, absolutely.
The province announced $30 million in funding for the lab back in January of last year. Since then, the cost has gone up another $1 million. The new lab will open at the Olette campus in about 18 months to 2 years. The current cath lab at the hospital serves 2,700 patients a year. Hospital management says the new lab will cut down on wait times for service and improve access. It will also nearly eliminate the need to send patients to Detroit for this care. The new lab will also be transferred to the new hospital once it's built. Murals are painted on nearly every block downtown Windsor, but a new app is going to make them even easier to find. A virtual self-guided tour has been created locally, sharing information on the 150 murals between Windsor and Detroit. The CBC's Dale Mullner tried it out.
So this little guy here is my favorite mural on the tour.
Doug Sartori created the app motorcitymurals.tours. Once you give the app permission to access your location, it will plot the best walking route to the mural location you choose on the map of either Windsor or Detroit.
So you'll get some images of the artwork and a little bit of a description of what we know about the art, the artist who made it. We thought it would be great to gently encourage folks to visit their own community and explore it, but also explore the community across the river. So we're hoping that Windsorites will get out and explore murals in Windsor, but also that they'll get over to explore Detroit, and same goes for Detroiters. We want them to visit the murals in their own city, but we'd love to see Detroiters come over and see what we've done here in Windsor.
Murals in the Whiff Alley downtown and ones in Ford City are featured, as well as others throughout the city and in Detroit.
I'm pretty familiar with downtown streets, but there were some murals that I've walked by for years and not noticed. So we provide a little bit of information there to help you find them as well.
The chair of the Downtown Windsor BIA hopes it will bring people downtown.
Yeah, I think anything that brings people downtown for a unique experience that they can't get somewhere else are the things that we're trying to promote, right?
Sartori says the app only catalogs about half the murals in the two cities, but the mural artists from the Free for All Walls Festival want to work with Sartori to add more links and information to help give more credits to the artists.
We're going to try to work with the developer on the app to improve some of the communication aspects of that app, which include, tagging some of the artists and linking out to their Instagrams, because the artists donate their time in order to create these murals. And as well, Free for All Walls, we want to make sure that some of the communication comes through our platforms, our communication platforms.
So we would love to convey some of that, I don't know, gusto that the murals have, and the vibrancy behind the stories within that app by connecting the artist to the app.
Sartori says he is open to feedback from both men and others who can provide more information. Ryan Ayres expects to meet with Doug Sartori sometime this Thursday. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Animal advocates are trying to catch 2 sheep that have been spotted around and on the EC Row Expressway. The sheep have been there for at least 2 weeks based on spottings. Charlotte's Freedom Farm, an animal sanctuary in Chatham, is now trying to rescue them.
Someone must have been transporting them. There's no way they got there from wherever they were staying because it's in the middle of Windsor. It's not legal to keep sheep anywhere near there. And sheep are herd animals. They're not the kind of animal that would go for a long walk. We think the 2 sheep jumped out in the last 3 weeks at that exact location and have been kind of trying to survive there. We did leave them some fresh water yesterday when we left, just because we know they have unlimited food. They survive off grass and weeds and leaves and the different things there. So they actually have a full buffet there. They can certainly survive food-wise as long as they're finding water, and they'd be at risk of predators and being hit by a car. We organized, I think we had about 40, I didn't count, but 40 or more people to go back last night. When we got there, we realized the sheep had made his way off the expressway. And so what became a little safer became a much more difficult rescue effort, because now he had streets, he could run around the school, there's a church there, there's a big treed area that's quite dense. Sheep are herd animals. Their happy place would be surrounded by a whole bunch more sheep. They don't want to be by themselves ever. Our sheep would never just go for a walk by itself. They will stay with their herd. They do not want to be alone. So these 2 are just running terrified, and they're looking at humans as predators.
Hurricane Beryl has been downgraded to a tropical storm. It roared ashore in central Texas as a Category 1 hurricane early this morning. It's now expected to turn north and east, crossing Louisiana and Arkansas. The storm brought winds topping 120 kilometers an hour, storm surges that were up to 2 meters above normal tides, and more than 20 centimeters of rain in some areas. Windsor also won't escape Beryl's wrath. Environment Canada has issued a warning in Windsor, Essex for Wednesday and Thursday. Beryl's remnants could cause torrential downpours, giving rainfall rates of 20 to 40 millimeters per hour at times. Colette, we had some beautiful warm weather today, but it looks like that is going to change pretty quick this week.
Yeah, we are going to be seeing some changes, and you were just, talking about one of the storms that will be having an impact on us. So let me take you down to the maps, and we'll show you what's happening right now with Tropical Storm Beryl. And yes, it's continuing to pound across Texas with the heavy rains and those strong winds. Tornadic activity in play there, flash flooding, power outages, continuing to deal with that. This is just over the past 12 hours since it made that landfall. But what is of note is that it is tracking to the northeast, and it's going to take some time, but it will be making its way towards us and towards southern Ontario as it comes through. So we can just go in for a closer look. This gives you an idea of the timeline. This could change a little bit especially as it's interacting with the landmass, it can start to slow things down a little bit or even speed them up. But as we head towards Wednesday afternoon, kind of crossing the international border there, what will be the remnants of Beryl. But just know that it's even earlier than that. So overnight Tuesday, where some of the effects, even if the center is still well to the southwest of us, some of the effects will begin to be felt. So we'll start to have those rain showers coming in later tomorrow. So it is a special weather statement at this time in play for southwestern Ontario because of some of those heavy rainfall rates and the amount of rain we could be seeing. Could have some flash flooding here. The winds won't be as strong. As it gets closer, if there's a need for rainfall warnings, if it meets that criteria, then we may see those upgraded by Environment Canada. All right, in terms of the nice and warm weather from today, you know, normal high 28, today's high 31, and even our lows on the mild side currently still holding there at 30 degrees. Chatham, Kent, you folks at 28. And our humidex values kind of in the mid-30s. So there are a few storms that have bubbled up. They're well to the west of us. In the overnight hours, some remnant showers could go through, really isolated. It's more as this cold front is coming towards us through tomorrow that we could see a repeat of that. So towards tomorrow, especially into the afternoon hours, that's just the remnant stuff I'm talking about. In the afternoon, a few showers beginning to bubble up, and some of these storms could be on the stronger side, but just isolated severe as that moves through. And then after that, changes in our temperatures. Although this is tropical and it'll have that tropical feel, it's going to bring the temperatures down and cool things down just because of how much rain will be coming through. Carrying on into Wednesday, there'll be some lapses in there, though, as that moves on through. No, tonight, this is just a snapshot of temperatures at 4 a.m. Mild. Hard to get any relief through the overnight hours if you don't have air conditioning when the temperatures are still that warm. 29 will be the high tomorrow. Wet conditions through Wednesday, and then we'll begin to rebound Thursday, but more so into Friday, Meg.
Thanks so much for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
Coming up, we have more reaction to the deaths in Harrow. I speak with a women's rights advocate about some of the signs of intimate partner violence, what people can watch for, and impacts of that violence in rural communities. Stay tuned. As police release more details around the death of the Walsh family in Harrow, women's rights advocates today are speaking out. I spoke with one based out of Ottawa who breaks down the impacts the pandemic had on violence against women, systemic issues that could prevent rural women from seeking help, and criticism of the police for what she calls a slow communication response.
Hearing the police finally stating the obvious, it felt like, okay, can we now move forward towards solutions? Can we talk about the systemic failures that happened here? So it felt like a long overdue acknowledgement of the fact that this was intimate partner violence.
Why is this not beneficial for the community to get that kind of official news out there so late while everyone is talking about it?
We know that intimate partner violence is a community issue. We know that femicide is a massive problem in Canada. And if the police are not even willing to name that reality, they're reinforcing this idea that there's absolutely nothing we can do. It's just, a private matter that does not actually require a community response, which is absolutely false.
A lot of municipalities have named this a crisis. What realistically can be done to protect women?
We can train police all day, every day to take intimate partner violence seriously, but they are by definition reactive. They respond to 911 calls. It is not their job to prevent violence. We need structural changes that will address the reality that, yes, Harrow is a small community, but that doesn't mean they should get less funding than folks from urban centers, because we know that there are risk factors that are unique to women and children living in small communities, and that includes things like additional isolation, lack of confidentiality. Everybody knows everybody, so can you safely disclose to someone without it coming back to your partner? Fewer resources, so if you're not in an urban setting, there are just fewer services that you can access. Lack of transportation, access to firearms. So there's nothing wrong inherently in owning a firearm, but if you're living in a house with volatility and that gun is very easily accessed, that not only puts you at risk, but also your abuser. And cases like these, such as these murder-suicides, do happen fairly frequently in rural areas because of the proximity to firearms.
What ways did the pandemic have an impact on IPV and femicide?
People are not well. And so if you were already struggling with your mental wellness prior to the pandemic, this has absolutely been exacerbated, which is pushing people over the edge. And we're seeing higher rates of self-harm, but also higher rates of femicide and family violence specifically. And so I think we need to have this tough but important conversation about how so many women stay in situations because they're concerned about the mental health of the person that's harming them. And although it is important to be empathetic in this world, we cannot prioritize the mental health of others over our own safety. And in this case, we know that men who experience mental health crises and have shown volatility in their relationship have a high probability of doing exactly what happened in Harrow.
One of the driest places on Earth is exploding with colorful blooms. We show you some of those gorgeous images coming up. A heat dome is stifling parts of Western North America with little relief during the night, and officials are asking people to prepare now to avoid serious health risks. The CBC's Anand Ram has more.
The warnings are everywhere as a heat wave is oppressing Canada's western provinces over the next few days.
Getting up into 35, 36, 37, that's extremely hot. So that's something a little more than we're used to.
And that unpreparedness has health officials concerned.
It is the first heat wave, and so some people may not be acclimatized, which is important in terms of some of the health risks.
Environment Canada has issued many heat warnings, with relief only expected towards the end of the week. But down south, like a weighted blanket, the U.S. is also feeling the heat, with cities like Las Vegas breaking temperature records.
Yeah, we were going to walk up and down the strip, but it's just way too hot to do that.
The heat has already killed in California's Death Valley. Health experts say keep a close eye on loved ones, watching for the symptoms of heat illness.
And if you have to be outside for long periods of time because you work outdoors, take multiple breaks, drink lots of water, and do it like several times per hour just so you can cool off a little bit.
And even as records may soon be broken in Canada and the U.S., global records already have. Europe's Climate Monitoring Service says for the 12th straight month, global average surface temperatures have been 1.5 degrees higher than pre-industrial times, flirting with a key threshold set in the Paris Climate Agreement.
2023 was extraordinary, but so far 2024 has been as extraordinary and may yet break that record.
Climate change is boosting the frequency and intensity of these heat waves, but experts warn that if humans continue to burn fossil fuels, what seems like a new normal could lead to even higher temperatures down the road. Anand Ram, CBC News, Toronto.
Rain is swamping India's financial capital, Mumbai, today. The floodwater is hampering transportation and forcing some schools to close. Commuters had to wade through knee-deep floodwaters. Electric trains are running nonetheless. It's not entirely terrible climate news. One of the driest places on Earth is exploding with colorful blooms. This desert in northern Chile is usually a desolate place, but the early arrival of winter rains in the southern hemisphere has the rocky dunes erupting with purple and white flowers. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.